Hey guys, Devin here with Admiral Off-Road, and today's video is the last one coming at you from Scotland. That's right, my next video is going to be me back home in Arizona with the Jeep, so maybe you'll get to see me do something rather than just standing in front of a whiteboard. With that said, today's video, last one probably in front of a whiteboard for a while, is the plan. Whenever you start a new project, you always have to start off with a plan. This one's mine, so let's get started. When building a Cherokee, it's important to decide what you want to do with it. Do you want to build a camping expedition style vehicle? Do you want to cut it up and tube it out and make it into a rock crawler? Or do you like going fast? There's a racing series called Jeep Speed. You could build a Jeep Speed style Cherokee if you want. Also take into consideration, where are you going to be wheeling it? What kind of terrain is that going to be? And do you need to drive it on the street? If you got to drive it on the street, it has to be street legal. So you can't, cut it up too much. You got to keep it street legal wherever you're driving it. For me, living in Arizona, street legal isn't too much of an issue. We're pretty lax here. I mean, my tires can stick out. I don't need fenders covering it or anything like that. But be sure you check your local laws. I found it really helpful to go on some forums, look at what other people have built. I didn't want to copy somebody else's build, but it's helpful to look at what are they running and what is that Jeep capable of. After taking into consideration where I live in the desert. I have, desert and rocks. And looking at other people's builds, I decided I want to build an Ultra 4 stock class style Jeep. What that is it's a racing series, and their maximum is a 35-inch tire. They have to keep it a full-bodied Jeep. So that's kind of what I wanted to build. Now, I'm not going to be racing any Ultra 4 races or anything like that, but I like the way they look and I like the way they perform. So my Jeep is going to have 35-inch tires, between 4.5 and 6 inches of lift, locked front and rear, and we'll get into more about the specifics of it here in just a second. Before we get to that point though, everybody likes to talk about lift and tires and all that good stuff. I call those the glory mods, because that's what everybody wants to talk about. Like, ooh, what size lift are you running? What size tires? But there's a lot that you have to, or that you should do first. I could put gigantic tires on a Jeep and put a whole bunch of money into lift and tires, but if the rest of my Jeep is going to fall apart, then it's not really worth anything. So there's a lot of things we have to cover before we get into the lift and tires. First thing I have on here, this isn't necessarily in the order that I'm going to do them, but these are all going to hopefully get done before any tires go on or bigger lifts. First one is unibody stiffeners. I already have my center unibody stiffener on there. I'm going to be adding front and rear stiffeners, so the whole thing is going to be plated and nice and strong. Next is going to be steering upgrades. Bigger tires are heavier. They put a lot more stress on your steering components and on the unibody itself. You don't just have to think about the steering components, but all around the steering box, I've seen those crack. You can look up online Jeep unibody cracking, and it's usually right around the steering box. It's people running big tires and not bracing the steering box, not adding an aftermarket spacer. So I'm going to be doing quite a few steering upgrades just to make sure it can handle those bigger tires. Next are skid plates. You don't want to be going through the desert and smashing stuff up. So I'm going to be plating, like the transfer case, transmission, doing the gas tank, so just, skid plates wherever I need them. Next is the slip yoke eliminator. I have a transfer case drop brackets, I guess you can call them, but they're a temporary fix, and I know most people will say, oh yeah, I'll get the slip yoke eliminator later, and then they never do, but I'm going to get that slip yoke eliminator in there. After that, I want to make sure the Jeep is going to be safe. I really like the look of an exo cage, and I like how it protects the body. But I know they lack some cross bracing. They don't have that center hoop that an internal cage does. So some people would say that they're not quite as strong. So I'm going to go with a hybrid cage. So it's going to be mostly an exo cage, but it's going to have that center cross bracing that's going to give it that extra bit of strength. So I hope it's going to be kind of the best of both worlds there. After that is axles and gearing. Those big tires are going to need some steeper gearing, or lower gearing, higher numerically. Than what I have. I have 355 gearing right now, and that would be no fun on 35s. I'm probably going to re-gear to 488s about. And axles. I don't have a problem running 35s on a Chrysler 8 1/4 axle, but my front axle is a Dana 30 low pinion, So at the very, very least, I'm going to upgrade to the high pinion. If I can find like a Dana 44 or something with 488 gears, I'll obviously grab that instead. After all this is done, then we can get into wheels and tires, putting the 35s on, and upgrading to long arms. I haven't quite decided yet if I want to do 4-link or 3-link or radius arms. Kind of weighing the pros and cons, and that will also be kind of decided, the long arms, by what I do for skid plates, what I'm going to have room for. I realize I've got a couple things on that list there. First one are bumpers. I want to get a good strong set of bumpers. They're going to tie into my exo cage, so I definitely don't want the bumpers to be the weak point. A couple other things I would be looking for in the bumpers, other than just strength, would be in the front. I'm probably going to run a winch, so it's got to be a winch bumper up front. I want recovery points front and rear, so it'd be good to integrate those into the bumper. In the rear, it'd be nice to have a tire carrier. I don't want to be throwing a 35-inch tire up on the roof. That's really, really heavy. So, just for ease of getting it up and down, and also for keeping that center of gravity a little bit lower, it'd be nice to have a tire carrier on the rear as well. After that, probably going to be just some little miscellaneous things. I'd like to add some armor to the quarter panels. Those are really, really straight and nice right now, and I'd like to keep them that way. Also, other things like, lights, maybe some intake stuff. Might do like a cowl intake, maybe like hood vents. Keep the Jeep nice and cool. But the main points that I wanted to make sure I addressed before adding the tires and axles was definitely just to make sure the Jeep is going to be able to stand up to the added stress of more suspension travel and bigger tires. That's going to be it for today. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have just anything to say about my plan, maybe some suggestions, go ahead and leave those down below in the comments. And if you like what you saw here, please like and subscribe. One other thing, I have a Facebook page and a Twitter now. So if you have any specific comments about something that's going on with your Jeep, or something that just doesn't really pertain to a YouTube video that I have, find me on Facebook. It's just Admiral Off-Road Facebook page. And you can message me, and I'll always message back on that. I try to get to all the YouTube comments, but I know sometimes I'm a little bit slow. But Facebook is definitely an easy way to get to me, and Twitter as well.